Good evening. Shanna, you will kick us off.
I'll say good evening again and welcome. The Lone Star Texas chapter of the Lincoln Incorporated is excited and honored to present this webinar with the Partnership for Children. The goal of the organization, both organizations, is to serve children, youth, and families that are disproportionately impacted by racism and other social injustices. The effort tonight is to raise awareness for children within the child welfare system. Every child in Texas who is waiting for a foster or adoption deserves an equal opportunity to be placed in a home. In tonight's webinar, we'll share some of the data about those numbers regarding African American children and a saddening disparity. I am confident that after hearing from each of our speakers, you will leave the webinar informed and educated and ready to action. Special thanks in advance to our speakers for taking the time to be here tonight to share their expertise and experiences. And I also want to thank Vanessa for being the spearhead for this wonderful educational opportunity and pushing us into making it happen. We wouldn't have a round of applause in advance. That's all for me. So let's get started.
So good evening, everyone. Now we will have Michelle Freeman and Sarah Waters tell us about Partnerships for Children.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for allowing us to be here tonight. My name is Michelle Freeman. I'm the Heart Gallery Program Manager with Partnerships for Children, and I have my colleague, Sarah Waters, is on the call with me. We're just going to share a little bit about what our organization does for those of you who might not be familiar with Partnerships for Children. The video that was shown at the beginning of the webinar this evening was a tour of our Rainbow Room. We're housed out of the CPS offices in North Austin. And the mission of our organization is to work with children and families in Child Protective Services to help make tomorrow better than today. And we do that through several areas. We have our Rainbow Room and Holiday Wishes programs, which provide resources, tangible resources to children and families. A lot of the items that you saw in that video, like clothing and hygiene items. We do a really large toy drive and gift drive for almost 7,000 children over the holidays, and each of them get their 3 holiday wishes filled. So we're very lucky to have the support of the community for that and appreciate the donations that we've received from the links there. So that's our resource services area. And then additionally to that, we have Foster Community, which is a child welfare sort of collaboration group between nonprofits, government agencies, and community leaders, including Judge Martinez Jones, who's on the call with us tonight, to kind of help strengthen the community and bring people who are interested in foster care and adoption, into the space, let them learn more about the work that we're doing and how they can support these children and families. And then our support services department includes the Heart Gallery, which is a community awareness initiative that uses professionally shot photographs that are displayed around Central Texas in conjunction with our Forever Families segment, which airs every week on KVUE and features the story of a specific child who is looking to find some sort of permanent housing before they age out of foster care. And it's a really great introduction to Central Texas to learn about our programs and children just in the child welfare system who are in need of supportive adults. I'm going to let Sarah talk to you a little bit. She manages our 2 mentoring programs that we have, Yes Mentoring and Kids in a New Groove. So I'll let her speak on those.
Thank you, Michelle. Yes, Partnerships for Children has 2 opportunities for the community to support our youth, either with our Yes Mentoring program, where you're helping them transition into adulthood. So the majority of the teens that are enrolled in that program are over the age of 14, and you're checking in with them on a weekly basis and trying to at least meet with them in person, or now in the pandemic era, virtually 1 to 2 times a month. With our Kids in a New Groove mentoring program, we bring the component of music into it. And so you're working to build that relationship with your youth, your mentee, through music. So you're teaching them how to play a musical instrument. They pick what instrument they want to learn, and Partnerships for Children provides that instrument to them. And then their music mentor builds that relationship, and they meet about once a week for 30 minutes. And so we're always looking for volunteers to get involved. Michelle, back to you.
Thanks. Thank you. So those are the programs that we offer, and those are a couple of different ways that everybody on the call here tonight can help our organization. We accept donations for the Rainbow Room and Holiday Wishes, tangible items. We have an Amazon wish list. Usually it's hygiene items, brand new clothing, suitcases, things like that, or participating in Holiday Wishes. If you're up for mentoring, you can mentor as a Yes Mentor, or if you are a musician, you don't have to be a professional musician, just a little bit ahead of the child that you're mentoring. We are always looking for mentors to help in that capacity. And then additionally, just, providing a space for the Heart Gallery, whether it's a place to host an exhibit. We have digital exhibits, which I think you'll see a little bit of coming up shortly. We have professional portraits that are on stretch canvas that we put out in the community. Or if you have a business that has some type of, experience, or somewhere we could bring a child to film the Forever Family segments. And also, any businesses that are interested in learning more about getting involved in the foster and adoption space can work with Foster Community to host a information session for your employees or other members, membership groups, and things like that. So those are just a couple of the ways that you can get involved with our organization, and we appreciate your support. And then I'm going to take a minute to introduce our next speaker, the Honorable Aurora Martinez Jones. She is the judge of the 126th District Court, presiding over Child Protective Service dockets, the Family Drug Treatment Court, and family law matters. In her role as judge, Aurora is responsible for the oversight and administration of all Travis County termination of parental rights civil lawsuits filed on behalf of the Texas Department of Family and Protective Services. Sorry, that is a mouthful. And she runs a trauma-informed court and continues her work in tearing down the school-to-prison pipeline, assuring race equity in our legal system, and protecting our children. She's been an advocate for parents and children in the child welfare system from her prior work starting as a litigator. She's a co-founder of the Child Welfare Race Equity Collaborative and is committed to an equitable, progressive, and anti-racist work in her courtroom and approaches to supporting children and families who appear in her court. So please join me in welcoming her tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I would love to just speak a little bit about what's currently going on in child welfare in Travis County and in the state of Texas. I do believe we're going to get a little bit more data later on and available for you all to be able to see kind of the numbers that are going to be expressed in kind of what I tell you about. So I feel very lucky to be able to focus on child welfare. In Travis County, the way our court system works is we kind of share cases. But because I do have a specialty in child welfare, the other judges have, by agreement, put me in charge of the administration and oversight of all the child welfare cases in Travis County. So I have one associate judge who helps me. And this is my first year as the state district court judge. I was just elected to this office at the end of last year in the year before now, the 2020 elections. And so 2021 is my first year as a state district court judge. Prior to that, I was the associate judge who supported the district court judge that was in charge. And now I'm in charge. And I've been very focused and very concerned with the children in our community because the data shows in Travis County, children of color are overrepresented in the child welfare system. We have more foster children who are Black and brown than are the same percentage in the population. And that's a problem. We would expect to see proportionate percentages of child population in Travis County as in foster care, and that's just not the case. And so since I took the bench and I was able to see that data and look at it from the perspective of being in charge of the whole county, I've realized that locally we have to take charge of this issue. And we've got to fix it for ourselves. The reality is that child welfare and foster care wasn't really made for our people. It was made to help poor white children get into middle-class Protestant families. But what we have now is a system that is intervening and really separating families of color. And that's not okay. So while we have this system that is in need of dire fixing, and what I like to say is really reimagining, we also are currently going through a crisis. And I want you all to understand, you may see some things in the news like today, because yesterday there was a hearing in a federal lawsuit against the state of Texas because the state has found to have violated the constitutional rights of our children in foster care. And again, which children are we talking about? Mostly Black and brown children. And this lawsuit's been going on for about a decade. And the new focus of the lawsuit has been children without placements. And you saw those offices, and we talked about caseworkers and working out of their cars and the things that have been donated. Well, over the last couple of years, we've also had children sleeping in those offices because they don't have a place, because the state can't find appropriate placement. And quite honestly, I don't know that this is going to be something the state is going to resolve by themselves. In the lawsuit hearing that was yesterday, they had additional reports, additional data about the children who've been without placement. And for me, my concern is the children of Texas, but I'm also most highly concerned with the children in Travis County because I am directly responsible for every single one of those children. And one of the wonderful things that I can say about our community, though we have some of the worst disproportionality in the whole state, we do have a giving community who wants to help and who wants to change. And even locally, our caseworkers who are overworked and underpaid want to see right by our kids. It's just a really hard situation when the state is in a direction that is not, in my opinion, doing what's best for our kids. So I will say right now, all the children without placement are all children of color in Travis County. Right now I have 9 children who are without a placement in Travis County. And out of those 9, 7 of them identify in the LGBTQ community. All of my 9 children are teenagers. And this is additional data and additional disproportionality that we're not really talking about and addressing, and which is really hard to bring up in a state like Texas. But it is a state agency, but we are still a local community. And I would love to very much share with you the promising aspect of what's going on locally. Over the last year, I have been working very hard, particularly with most of the panelists here today, and in very, very close partnership with Partnerships for Children. And we have launched a pilot. It's called the Travis County Child Welfare Reimagined Pilot. And I just made public our webpage where you can learn more about it. And I want to share because this is a community effort that we are launching so that we all come together and take care of our children. We've had multiple steps involved with this. Like I said, we've been doing this all year, but one of the big steps also that we just launched was a location for our children in Travis County to be at. That is a cottage. It is in Travis County, and we are able to put some structure and some therapeutic supports in place, even though those kids do not have placement. So we're bringing our kids back to our space because they moved all of my Travis County kids without placement outside of Travis County. I didn't have any of my kids who were sleeping in offices, sleeping in an office in Travis County because the landlords of all those administrative buildings told CPS that they cannot have children sleeping there. They're administrative buildings. And so I didn't have any of my kiddos at home. We're bringing them home. And so we just launched last week, actually, that location. And Partnerships for Children is actually the 501c3 who is helping hold funding that we've received from local foundations to support this effort. One of our panelists, Ms. Courtney Jones, is one of my consultants to make sure that the voice of children, the voice of parents, the voice of family who have been through the system is at the forefront of how we reimagine what we do. She's keeping us accountable. And we have just brought in as many partners as we can to help support this effort. And I'm glad to speak here to another group who can partner with us in supporting this effort, because what I've realized in my position is that if we don't take care of our own kids, I don't trust the state of Texas to take care of them. And I'm being very candid with you. I'm an elected official now, but I'm going to tell you exactly what's going on. And it's not okay, and it's not good, and it's not going to resolve itself. We've got to do it. And if we think about who is going to care about the Black and brown children in Travis County, it's got to be us. So I appreciate you all giving me time to talk a little bit about what's going on. I am not going to hide it. This is a crisis. The situation is dire. Black and brown children are being treated worst. The teenagers in the child welfare system are being treated the worst. LGBTQ children are being treated the worst. And children with severe mental health needs are being treated the worst. And oftentimes these children are one and the same. They encompass all of these. And we have to do better by our children. I wholeheartedly think about the quote from Nelson Mandela about how we can judge a society based on the way we treat our children. And that's where I'm coming from. I want to say in the link that I put in the chat that gives you the information about our pilot and all the steps that we've taken to make progress. One of the, again, most recent steps, I'm telling you, we just launched this. We're doing this like real time. This was just updated, but we're hiring a position who's going to be employed by Partnerships for Children to help us be a community engagement specialist. So the person that's going to help us with this pilot bring in the links and other organizations who can help be a piece of what we need to take care of our kids. So I'm so excited to hire someone in that position, because we could use the help, but we're really taking a focus to make sure that we're doing this right and that we are getting everybody involved and that we do our best to take care of our children. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Judge Martinez Jones. That was such compelling information. And I know that our attendees will have questions for you. We're going to watch a short video and then we'll move into our panel, but we do want you to hang around so that we can ask questions of the pilot and some of the data points that you shared with us. So
absolutely,
for everyone,
great.
Everyone on the call, please hold on to your questions. I know that you have them. We're going to watch this short video first.
I don't know like which order to do it first. So maybe I'll just tell my story first and shout out my amazing grandmother. Everybody called her Big Mama. I just called her Mama. She was the only mother that I knew. So when my mother passed away at 3 years old, I love it. There's the PSA that KV put together is amazing. I did a lot of recording and they used like this one line. I'm just excited to use this one key line. It was like many foster youth, I ended up in foster care at no fault of my own. And that part is really key. To realize that these children end up there like through no fault of their own. And so that's why it's on us as responsible adults, as caring adults, as empathetic individuals, as heroes like Marshall's parents that can swoop in and like bridge the gap.
To the moment, rise to the occasion. Open your eyes, recognize there's greatness within your reach. You should seize it, you should take it. Can you see it? Can you taste?
Destiny.
hard work and a plan, that's a recipe for success. That'll launch you where them blessings be. The road to riches though, that's where them testers be. But I'm focused that you're not stressing me. A lot of pride plus a lot of confidence, and my job is to see what is not obvious. As a pioneer, an entrepreneur, so I'ma work it out till it's smoother than velour, for sure. See, I'ma make it to the finish line. I got my second win, and now it's finish time. It's like spinach time, and I am Popeye. Stop short? No, not I.
Rise, rise, and open your eyes. Now is the time for you to shine. Yeah, sing rise, rise, and open your eyes. Now is the time for you to shine. Yeah.
Now you got nothing to lose, but to make you daily play like you got nothing to choose. You got nothing to lose, but to make you daily play like you got nothing to choose. Now, put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. To all of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say holla, see you later. Put your hands in the sky, waving side to side. We ain't going nowhere, we just waving bye-bye. To all of the haters, to all the haters, to all of the haters. Say holla, see you later.
Rise, rise, and open your eyes. Now is the time for you to shine. Yeah, sing rise, rise, and open your eyes. Now is the time for you to shine. Yeah.
Thank you to Partnerships for Children for supporting these children through the Heart Gallery. We just saw artists, singers, writers, athletes, even Lego masters, and many animal lovers in their hobbies and talents. My name is Natasha Martin, and I'm excited to moderate this panel tonight. I'm a member of the Lone Star, Texas chapter of the Links Incorporated, an organization supporting women and children of color in Williamson and Bell counties. I'm also a mother, wife, and a lawyer here in Austin, serving clients on environmental issues and from time to time, providing pro bono legal services on family law cases. Each of our panelists will tell you about the positive impact that families and the community have on supporting children in foster care, helping children get adopted, helping youth in foster care successfully transition to adulthood. They all have lived experiences in foster care or as adoptive parents. So in reverse alphabetical order, because all of these women are phenomenal, I'm honored to start and welcome Courtney Jones. Courtney holds both bachelor's and master's degrees in social work and is the founder and executive director of Change One, a local nonprofit providing youth services to transition and aged out youth ages 15 to 26 as they enter adulthood. Courtney has advocated for youth and alumni in the foster care system for 15 years, and she's also a former foster youth. Courtney is the change we want to see. She recently adopted her 2 cousins from foster care. Welcome, Courtney. I'm excited to welcome next Gigi Bryant, a 7th generation Texan and 5th generation Austinite. I don't even know how many years that is. Gigi is also a wife, mother, elected official, community volunteer, business owner, and growing up in the Texas foster care system did not stop her from achieving all of this. In 1993, Gigi started GMSA Management Services, providing lobbying, business development, and community outreach. If you ask Gigi about her strong belief to protect all children, she'll tell us that that is everyone's duty in this country. And she has a moving quote from scripture. Gigi created the Right to Me Foundation with the motto, "You're free to dream by one." And she'll tell you what that motto means. Last Welcome, Gigi. Last but not least, I'm honored to welcome Chelsea Alexander. Chelsea holds both bachelor's and master's degrees in social work, and she is the Texas Family Support Network coordinator at the Texas Alliance of Child and Family Services. That's a network of organizations improving services for at-risk children and families impacted by trauma. Chelsea has worked in the foster care system for over 13 years, serving children and families through several key organizations. Chelsea excels in this work as she and her husband, wait for this, have 5 children, 2 adoptive bonus kids, and 3 biological children. I will drop the websites for the organizations that our panelists are engaged in the chat. So I've not had the honor of appearing before Judge Martinez Jones on my family law cases because that was before she took the bench. But everyone in and outside the bar knows of her dedication to child welfare in Travis County. And I thank you for that. Judge Jones did pull some compelling statistics and she referred to them earlier, but I would like to take some time to actually walk through those statistics with you. Okay, can everybody see that slide? So I don't know if it can be bigger, but I'll just tell you what's on the slide. This slide is showing the statistics for Travis County. African-American children are 4.3 times more likely to be reported, 5 times more likely to be investigated, 6.4 times more likely to be removed than Anglo children. And then if we, if we're going to look at the next slide, that's the state level. The gap here is not as wide, but again, you're going to see the largest disparity in African-American children who are 1.7 times more likely to be reported, similar for 1.9 to be investigated and 1.5 to be removed. And as Judge Martinez Jones highlighted, the county, the community, organizations represented on this call are all coming together and changing these statistics. So the panelists, and I will stop talking and we will start asking them questions, but the panelists are deeply involved in protecting Black, brown, and diverse children. And everybody on this call has an ability to help that effort. So while we get into the discussion, I just want to reiterate that you can drop your questions in the chat. I will try my best to monitor the chat, and then we can ask the panelists during the Q&A to address those questions. So my first question is to each of you. I'm going to start with Chelsea. Give us a short introduction of yourself. And please touch on what about your experience would you like to share with our attendees? And then how was your experience shaped? How has it shaped who you are today?
Oh, wow. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here tonight and taking some time out of your week in the crazy times that we are living in right now. I'm grateful to be here. I'm grateful to share about my experiences. A little bit about me, I think Natasha shared. I've got a lot of kids, and like she mentioned, 2 of them are bonus kiddos. And over time, I can recall just being a young adult and going through college. I can remember hearing stories off and on as I pursued my degrees in social work about children and youth in care, especially Black and brown children. And those stories always stuck with me. And they never left me. And one particular time, this shaped my experience. If I could share this, I know we're short on time. I was in a child development class, and our professor was a professor at a different college. And one of the things she mentioned was that there are so many youth that are either in foster care or have aged out, and they're pursuing their degrees. And they didn't have anywhere to go during the holidays because the college campuses shut down. And that never left me. And that shaped me in the sense of what I wanted to do with my career. Social work is broad because you can get involved almost anywhere, right? Social justice is something that we're always going to be pursuing. And so that stuck with me. And from then on, my path forward was to support families. And so from there we adopted, and that was a history and a journey. And that helped us understand that we needed to adopt older children. For the stats that you saw just a few moments ago and what you've been hearing tonight was that there were so many teenagers that were ending up in a space that they didn't have support. And my husband and I felt like we could potentially be that. So through that shaped my work really, and everything that has led to where I'm at now. And what I really recognize from the work that I've done and the collaborations that I've been on with all these women on this call is how much support we need from our community. It is key. It is going to be key to changing everything about the system, because the system, like Judge Martinez Jones, has failed us. It will continue to fail us. And we have always been great about supporting one another. And we have got to continue to rise to support each other through the times that we're living in right now. And so I don't know if that answers your question, but that is how my experiences have led me to where I am now and what I have learned over the past 10 years, just being involved in the child welfare space and being an adoptive parent.
Thank you, Chelsea. And it absolutely answers the question. Gigi, how about your experiences?
Sure, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited about this panel, and I've met most of you. I've not met the judge yet, but we'll make sure that happens soon. My experience and a little bit about me is my family and I entered the foster care system in 1964. So my experience with the child welfare system, how it works and what happened is over 50 years. I went in, my 4 siblings, we were immediately separated and ended up in different homes, which speaks volumes about how important it is to keep siblings together. Because when you're going through such trauma, you need your siblings, somebody with you that you can identify with. And that's one of the things that the system does that I think is very harmful to children. And it's also very harmful to their development and how they're going to get along in life. I didn't go for a social work degree. I went for a business degree and got an MBA because I felt that it would be the business part of the system that would help it the most. That we need to look at how we spend our money, what we're doing with it, and how it affects the children and the budget. I'm a budget person. I believe that if I look in your checkbook, which I hope you're not still writing checks every day, I can tell what's important to you. So if I look at your debit cards, I can tell what's important to you. And just like NASA, which we've discovered lately, when something is really, really important, there are a bunch of eyes on it. And all those eyes have different experiences. So that coming together, we can do some fixing of what went wrong here, what went wrong there, and actually have a collaboration that's meaningful. I feel like my future was shaped by the foster care system by living in over 20 homes, going in as an African-American girl. My first family was British, so we got a little British accent and hair all over our head. So we were bullied a lot. You know, we'd get out of a white station wagon, go into school, and not really know who we were. And I think that's one of the issues that African-American families can bring to African-American children, to give us that conversation and that confidence of who we are and that it is good enough. And so as Natasha said earlier, my You're Free to Dream by One came about one day when I was thinking, if I don't use my faith to believe in myself, then my path is going to be very short. So I wanted people to believe in me and I wanted people to dream with me. But if it didn't happen, I knew it had to start with me. So that was my You're Free to Dream by One. That's what that was about. Thank you.
Thank you, Gigi. You raised so many good points that I hadn't even translated. You know, look at what you're doing with your money, and that's what's important to you, among many other things, and also kind of like the imposter syndrome. Courtney, moving to you.
Yes. Thank you so much, each and every one of you, for spending your evening with us and learning more about the child welfare system. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas, and I moved to Austin, Texas in 2010 to work for the Department of Family and Protective Services. And I never thought that someone like myself that came from the foster care system would be working for CPS. I decided that I wanted to go to school to become a social worker so that I could help young people that were in the same position that I was in, but I didn't envision myself doing that through CPS. But what I can say is that by the grace of God, you know, it's his divine order of what he has for me to do in my life. And so I was able to help oversee a program called the Education Training Voucher Program. And that's money where young people can use to for books and things outside of tuition. And for someone that has used ETV and to be able to do contract monitoring and to ensure that we're doing right by young people, that was just such an honor. And I also was able to oversee our Youth Leadership Council group, where I was able to ensure young people's voices were heard through policy and procedures. And so I think through my experience of being in the foster care system for 10 years, and then being in the Youth Leadership Council group myself, it came full circle in my professional life. And I feel like if I wouldn't have went through group homes and shelters and foster homes and back with family, adopted, failed adoption, you know, if I wouldn't have went through all of that, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. And so it does shape everything that I do. I started my own organization, Change One, and it's to help young people find their voice, learn how to constructively utilize their voice to impact systems change. I think that shaping their voice and empowering them with the tools necessary for change is important. And so our motto at Change One is change one mind, change one life, help change a forgotten child's life. And so that is for young people to realize, but also for the community to realize. And I do this work each and every day because while I was in care, I was in homes that did not look like me. And that impacted me so much. It impacted my self-confidence. It impacted my identity. It impacted so many things when it comes to like religion. Because if I was in a home that was Catholic, then I would go to a Catholic church. Or if it was non-denominational, I would go to non-denominational church. So when I left foster care, I didn't know who I was. And I think with everything that is going on in our society with racism, it didn't dawn upon me some of the things that happened to me while I was in foster care, and some of the injustices that happened that continuously still happens. And so I'm thankful to be in a position to shape the reality for our young people coming up in the foster care system. So thank you so much.
You all are thanking us. I mean, we should be thanking you. I do want to turn to, you know, some lived experiences. And this question is for Gigi. Many youth in the foster care system kind of take on the role as an adult at a younger age before they would normally, and have to advocate for themselves when most parents would be stepping in for them. What's the impact on that added pressure on that youth?
Thank you. One of the big things that I always say is, if you take a child and turn it into an adult, it's still processing with the child's mind. So you have somebody out there that has no background, no experience in decision-making, no way of discerning what's right or wrong, but they know that if they don't do it, they won't survive. So then we take a 7-year-old and we tell them, you know, you have no family, you're here, I'm gonna take care of you, I don't look like you, as Courtney pointed out. There's a lot of that, but you're damaged because you don't have that intuition to tell you anything else. You get into a fight or flight. And I think what ends up happening is you have 13-year-olds who's had adult experiences, but don't have the adult processes. So therefore, when it comes to adopting a 13-year-old that's acting like a 25-year-old and had those experiences, you have to really go through your mind and see if that's the person you want in your home. Now, that is not on the child, that's on us. Our whole responsibility within the family welfare system is to take care of children. And we have a multi-billion-dollar budget directed towards children. So every day that somebody in that system working, get up and go to work, it's kind of like a football team. You're dependent on teenagers to win, Georgia. You're dependent on children to pay your salary. Our job is to do the right thing and to allow them to be children. I grew up way too fast. I saw things I should have never seen. I saw things that happened, and I'm sure Courtney and everyone else has these same experiences that we should have never experienced. But we were fight or flight, and we were on our own. So to summarize, if you're going to ask someone to adopt a 13-year-old, a 7-year-old, and all the heart gallery pictures, which are compelling on their own, make sure that that 13-year-old is not operating as a 25-year-old, and you're putting him in a room with your 7-year-old, because you can't expect anything good to come out of that.
Thank you, Gigi. Chelsea, this question is for you. I saw that you did some work kind of recruiting and training adoptive families or potential parents. What do you tell them, you know, about allowing that child to still be a child? Kind of piggybacking on what Gigi said.
Oh, lots of things. But I think the biggest thing, one of the first things I talk about is commitment, first of all, is when you step in to do this, when you are saying yes to adopt, to foster, you need to be 150% committed to what you are doing, what you're saying yes to.
Chelsea, you broke up for a second.
Okay, can you hear me now?
I can. Oh, that's
sorry.
excellent.
Okay, sorry about that.
When you decide to adopt is where we broke up.
Yes, or foster, be 150% committed to the decision of yes when you say yes to a child. And then the next thing that I'll say to that is to be trauma informed. And Gigi is hinting to that when we are talking about children that are 13-year-olds that have experiences that they should not have had growing up. And so one of the most important pieces when you're considering becoming an adoptive parent is to make sure that you are trauma informed and you're looking at things through different lenses, and that you are preparing your family and yourself in a way to parent kiddos who have had some challenges, just like Saul Paul said in the video, at no fault of their own. And so you need to be prepared as a family to walk through those challenges. And know what you're walking into. You are never going to be 150% prepared. No parent is prepared for kids, right? I mean, right. At all. But you can educate yourself. You can sit on and look at webinars like this as we're having these discussions. You can talk to experts about this, and you make sure that you have a support system in place. And I think those things there are what I tend to make sure families understand when they're walking into this decision. And just making sure that their motivations are pure, that your motivations are pure, and that you are committed and you are preparing yourself to change your family, not the child having to bend everything to you, but you making sure that you're blending your family and everybody is together, working together as one.
Right. So you're acclimating the family to the child.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Courtney, here's a question. What do you think is the biggest misconception, misunderstanding, or myth that society has about youth in the foster care system?
Yeah, so there are a couple things. One, I would say most individuals think that children in the foster care system are juvenile delinquents. And that is a myth. As Paul said, people come into the foster care system at no fault of their own. Foster care is because of abuse, neglect, or exploitation. So when you hear foster care, unfortunately, that's not the first thing that comes to people's mind. And I can most definitely say that society, our social media, our movie networks, TV has a lot to do with it. Because anytime you watch Law and Order and somebody gets in trouble, they say, oh, they grew up in an orphanage or a group home. Or anytime, that there is some movie, they have this troubled childhood. And it infuriates me that they continue that dialogue, because that hinders people from wanting to foster and adopt, because of that myth that is planted in their head that children from foster care are troubled. And yes, trauma does exist, but trauma exists even with your biological children. You can have biological children and have good days and bad days. There are going to be times you want to pull out your hair and times that you don't. And that's what people fail to realize when it comes to children in foster care. They're no different than the children you give birth to. Sometimes people think that they're different, or they think if I give birth, then my child's going to turn out this way or that way. But we all know that we can give our children the best guidance in the world, and it's up to them if they're going to follow that guidance. So that's one myth, that they're juvenile delinquents. And that the second myth is that if you give birth to your own child, then they'll be better than a child that you didn't give birth to. And then I think the other thing that people say that I think is very hurtful is that, what did you do? When I tell people, oh, I was in the foster care system, and they were like, oh my gosh, what happened? What did you do? And that's when I have to educate people that I didn't do anything. I was abused, and so I ended up in the foster care system. And so again, I don't take too much offense to it, because it's really just people not knowing, and they need to be educated. So those are a couple myths.
Thank you, Courtney. And, it seems like, we're taking steps tonight, educating, and we can keep doing that. I want to talk a little bit about the processes and, kind of how do you go about fostering and adopting? And so, Chelsea, I guess, could you talk about, what that process was like for you and your family?
Yes, I'm happy to. We were a little bit of an anomaly. I will say that. It happened very quickly for us. I will just say I'm a person of faith, and the way everything lined up is not how I would have envisioned it. But it was something we were led to do. And so I happened to work at a Boys and Girls Club and knew our kiddos were needed to be adopted. And so we started that process, and I would say within 3 months, they were in our home. They came and moved in with us on our anniversary, our 7-year anniversary. And so that completed our family. That's why I say this was all God. But the process is paperwork. The process is people getting in your business. The process is training and lots of training and continual training and more training. And there's nothing easy about the process, but it's about the children. And that's what you always have to come back to. So here in Travis County, we have foster care and adoption information sessions that you can attend, and you can really learn more in detail over the course of an hour and a half about children in foster care, and not just children, but families. And that is one thing that's so important, and that we are learning, my husband and I, even on our journey, is how important the family is, not just the kiddos. And so that process can take some time, anywhere from, I would say, 4 to 6 months, maybe longer. It all depends on your motivation, what your hopes are, what you feel is important for your family. And so that's kind of how things worked for us. Our kiddos were in our home within 3 months, and we adopted them 6 months later on February 12th. And so they have been with us for 7 years now. One is 20, my God, and the other one is 15, and it changed our lives. It's been beautiful. It's been hard. Just like Courtney said, parenting, you just don't know. And so you roll with it. But again, be prepared, do your research, educate yourself, ask questions. Because you want to be prepared. You will never be 100% prepared, but you can prepare yourself in certain ways. And that is something that my husband and I did for sure.
Thank you for that. I mean, I hear sometimes folks say, well, you need a lawyer to get through the process. Is that true? Or is that just kind of in difficult situations?
No. When you were talking about adopting through foster care, one of the things I will say that the department has, for the most part, made not as hectic and crazy. I mean, it's still a little hard, but you don't need a lawyer. There are minimal costs to adoption through foster care, even becoming a foster parent. If you are getting licensed with the Department of Family and Protective Services, or you're getting licensed with a child placing agency, a lot of them cover some of the initial costs, like background checks and home inspections and stuff like that. The department provides the lawyer and the things that you need towards the end for adoption. So we're essentially talking about preparing your home for a child. So imagine having a baby, what you would do, you're setting up the exact same way, except your family is coming together a little bit differently. So at times there may be need for a lawyer, but starting out, get that information on the front end, and it's not as hectic as if you were to go through a private adoption agency.
Right. And just to be clear, that was not self-promotion. No. I know. I'm saying that for myself, not because you implied it.
Oh, okay. I was like, no, wait, what?
Well, I've got a few more questions before we turn to the Q&A, and I might be cut off here pretty soon, but I think this is an important one for you, Gigi. So we had found a national statistic that after reaching the age of 18, 20% of children who were in the foster care system will basically instantly become homeless. And so what are your thoughts on ways that we should be helping older teens and young adults achieve that economic sufficiency, independence, so that they're ready?
Thank you. One of the things that we really need to focus on is you become homeless when you age out because you don't have a driver's license. You don't have the appropriate identification. You've never seen your birth certificate, and you don't know how to maneuver the process. So when you go to an apartment complex, they ask you for these documents that you just don't have. If we're going to raise children, which the state was never really meant to do, it was meant to take children in. keep them in an environment where they're safe, and return them to their parents, is what it was meant to do. But since we've gotten out of that model, we have to, when they become teenagers, we have to do our part to make sure that they're ready. We have to make sure they have everything they need in order to get an apartment, or to get a job, or to present themselves well, like we do with our children. We have to say, these are our children, and if they're our children, we're responsible for their behavior. I had a friend that adopted a child, and she once said, oh my God, this baby's 7 years old, and she's acting just like her mother. And I don't know what to do. And I said, when I look at her, I see you, and I know exactly what to do with you. And she was like, oh, I said, yeah, you are her mother. And when we see her misbehave, we look at you. So there's no break in, she's acting like her biological mother. You are the mother now, as Chelsea and Courtney both pointed out. So everything she does is a reflection of you. So get it together, and that's what we have to do. We have to get it together for them. When I left the foster care system, I was homeless. I didn't have any relatives. I didn't know who they were. I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. So I surfed, and I had a daughter. So I couch surfed until I could figure out, what do I do with myself? And that's when I became more attuned to the business part of this. And the business part of this tells me that if you have a certain amount of money in a system for a child, you have to allocate those funds to make sure that every need is met. Take them to the driver's license place, pay for that. Like we do our children, take them, get their social security card, do all these things, like on day one when they step out, they're ready for the world. That's what we're supposed to be preparing our children for, and not the fear of someone's going to say, I came from the foster care system and I'm not as good as the next person. And I still have people, I'm 64 years old, and I have people ask me today, how did you make it through the system? And I'm like, it's a multi-billion-dollar system with a lot of moving parts, a lot of people doing a good job, some people doing a bad job, but it's like any other component. Why wouldn't I make it through? And as Courtney pointed out, the heads just shake. It's like, because they don't expect me to make it through, simply because when you look at the reviews for something that you're buying, we do it all the time. We go to Amazon, we look at the reviews. We see how many people said it was good, how many people said it was bad. You get on a national website and you look at the reviews for a child in the foster care system, you're not buying that. You're certainly not bringing it into your home, your sanction, your care. So if we're going to put the reviews out, make them true, and put out the fact that we gave this child all we had, and now the child is ready to live on their own and go to college. You can't go to college if you don't have anywhere to stay. The key to education is not the education. The key to education is the key to the door. Where are you going to store your stuff? Once your stuff is stored, you can concentrate. So let's make sure they have the right items and the right background and right teaching so that they don't end up homeless. And if they do, they can come back to an organization and get that help to get back on their feet. Like our children come back to our homes and their parents help them get back on their feet. We got to make that, but you don't want to go back to anything that hurt you, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to make sure we don't damage them to the point where they won't come back to us and end up homeless on the streets.
Thank you so much. Well, I can't even I don't have words for that. I hadn't thought about the reviews and how, that can impact your future. So many key points here. I need to check in with the three of you and everybody else on this call and Judge Jones, because we have gone over time with this important discussion. I see 3 questions in the chat. So if you all could give us a few more minutes, maybe 5 to 10 more minutes, we'll keep going, and I will be forever grateful. How does that sound? Okay. All right. And so we'll cover these 3 questions that we received. The first one being, is there a methodology currently in place for a child in the foster care system to report physical or mental abuse? And Judge Martinez Jones, please feel free to step in the Q&A, please.
Well, I would say anybody who is concerned about abuse or neglect should contact the hotline. We have a centralized hotline for the whole state. And I think even a kid who's experiencing it should contact that number. Additionally, I'm always very much an advocate of hearing directly from a child. Children are supposed to be visiting with their judge at all of their permanency hearings and making sure that they tell their judge what's going on. I can't tell you the number of times I've called the hotline myself after I visited with the kid and heard about something going on. And then the last thing I'll say is that there is an office of the ombudsman for kids in foster care where they can report concerns that they have while they're in care. But again, I would start at the very top to get immediate attention, especially if it is current abuse that's occurring, mental abuse, emotional abuse, any kind of abuse, to call the hotline immediately, even if it's about them and their experience.
Thank you. We also have another question, and our attendee has a good lead up. She states, I could be incorrect, but it seems that the state of Texas has provided some funding, but not the correct staff training, oversight, or personnel and budget. I think we heard a little bit of that from Judge Martinez Jones earlier. What actions would you recommend the community take to basically hold the state of Texas accountable for this inefficiency? I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is, legislative sunset, but, I've also seen that effort not do any good. So please, if anyone would like to jump in on that question, please do.
Well, I will say just to start off that the legislature does set the budget for the Department of Family and Protective Services. From there, I think it is the other kinds of continued accountability that we need to have for the state agency, making sure that it stays in the spotlight and in the public. For example, I don't know if the community and the public is aware that one of the national trainings, Know Who You Are, which is about the diversity of the children that we serve and the families that we serve, that was a mandatory training for all caseworkers, was removed and no longer required by the department due to politics, due to an unfounded and erroneous claim that it's the state mandating critical race theory. It's not critical race theory training, but that happened in the last couple of months. And so if we don't highlight that, if we don't keep it at the forefront, the governor is currently in a campaign. There's people who want to be governor. Ask the candidates the questions about what they're going to do about foster care and how they're going to fix this and how they're going to spend the money. We've got to hold them accountable in that way. The commissioner of the Department of Family and Protective Services is appointed by the governor, which is why I point out the governor's race.
Thank you. So again, here, using your vote really does matter. See.
One thing that I would also add to it is we would love to hold the department accountable, and we would love to advocate for more funding on a state level and federal level. But I think what the community fail to realize is that the state doesn't get a dollar for dollar match. And they have to figure out ways to raise money as well as the state funding that they receive. So there are some counties that have more money than others. So there are going to be counties that some kids may be lacking more than others because of the funding stream. So the community can play a part in ensuring that the kids in their county have the things that they need. So contributing to the Rainbow Room, really working with the child placing agencies in your community is another way to work in tandem with the system as well.
Thank you, Courtney. So our last question in the chat, and then I'll have a final question if we've got just a few minutes. Can someone speak to, what the resources are for children who are vulnerable to addiction and human trafficking and criminal offenses. And, you know, there's the hotline, but are there any other additional resources specifically?
Well, I think it, oh, go ahead, Gigi.
At one time, I actually served as the chair for the Department of Family Protective Services, appointed by the governor for 6.5 years. I think they baked a cake when I left, I heard. But I asked the tough questions. And one of the questions was, if you're not listening to this child, which they're children, 0 to 18 at the time, 21, still a child. If you're not listening to the child, then how do you know you're making the right moves? And if you're not providing an environment where they feel they can come to you first, because there's a long line of people out there telling them how much they love them and how much they're the only one that loves them. And this system has done you wrong, and now you're with me, and I'm going to take care of you. Those are very powerful words for a young man or a young woman. You can trust me, and I'm going to take care of you. If we're going to use our resources and really listen to our children, then we have to make sure the two things are paramount in their thought process. We don't have to tell them that we love them, because if we take care of them and they can trust us, then the love that they feel will come about, it'll grow and it'll nurture it, and no one will be able to take that away from them. And I think we don't have, and back then we don't have, and when I was in the system, we don't have a safety return without a bunch of paperwork. You know, when you come back for help, you know, how long have you been out? Have you passed the 60 days of, you know, we can give you this or give you that, which is the reason we have so many organizations that are stepping up. They're stepping up to fill that gap, to say, okay, let me help you get back in. It's still difficult. And when you're hungry and afraid and on the streets, difficult is not something that you really need. So I think if we could build that by using a nonprofit organization, or just telling the child while we have them that you can come back and we will take care of you. And I think that's what they really need to know. Not to hear, they need to know it.
Mm-hmm. I'll mention we do have some organizations like the Refuge and the Retreat that are very specific to youth who are survivors of trafficking. We have some locations like Phoenix House, which is for youth with substance use disorder. But one of the things identified just yesterday is that Texas needs to do better with mental health access for foster kids. And I'll just put in the chat an article that talks about that, which was discussed yesterday in the federal lawsuit. And now the state has 90 days to figure out how they're going to improve that. And I'm keeping my fingers crossed that this federal judge is able to help us get some progress in Texas for our mental health needs for foster children.
You know, I just like to ask the question. The one thing that we know in this world is how to treat children. And if we don't separate, this is a foster child, this is a child, then we can put those services in place. Because I can assure you, for our children, we know how to get help for them. But for foster children, we seem like we're dealing with a whole different issue of child. So I think if we use our current resources, as you pointed out, Judge, to all children and make them available within our process, because they are wards of the state, we can do better. We can do a whole lot.
And I'll mention that it's a cycle too, because I've recently seen a lot of parents who are trying to access the psychiatric supports for their kids, but then we have kids who are in foster care that are in those beds. And so then the parents are coming to the state saying, I don't know that I can continue to support my kid. I can't get access. And it's this really vicious cycle because the state's not getting those kids out of those beds so that kids in the community can use those beds. And I agree, the mental health need is across the state for all kids, not just the kids in foster care. And that's how we do better. And that's how we reduce the number in care.
Can I just add, kind of on top of that, to what Gigi and Judge Martinez Jones were saying? I know that question asked about programs as well. And I think just tangibly, Courtney is here with Change One, and you can get with Change One on how to support youth that have aged out of care. And her program is fantastic. Just like she mentioned, giving voice. I can't talk about Courtney's program like she can, but that's a very tangible way for you all on this call or on this webinar to get involved, as well as with Partnership for Children in the mentoring program that they have for youth and young adults. Those are to help build the life skills and help build those life skills that a lot of our youth are needing, just as Gigi was referencing. So those are very easy, tangible ways that you can say yes. We are talking about adoption and we are talking about foster care, but not everybody is there. But the important thing that we want you to know is that you can do something, and to not walk away from this event without saying, okay, what is it that I can do? And both of these programs can start you on your journey in some capacity.
Well, and I'll say, Chelsea, on that note, as a judge, I don't fundraise or anything, but I can tell you, Gigi, if you look in my debit card, you will see that I give to Partnerships for Children and I give to Change One, and I'm looking at your organization too. So I will just share where I give, and it is on this panel, some organizations that you are familiar with.
If we just walk away, as Chelsea said, with one takeaway, and we spread it throughout our communities, thank you, Judge, and we spread it throughout our community, we will make a difference for kids that look like us because they need to see us. So thank you for that, Judge.
Awesome. Well, I've got, and thank you for that. All the websites for the organizations are in the chat, and I believe they all have links where you can put your money where it should go. But my one last question for each of you is, what call to action do you have for us listening on the call tonight? So we'll start with Judge Martinez Jones.
All right, I'm going to warn you that I'm an ideas person, and the people who know me know that. And so I have been thinking, and the links incorporated, oh my goodness, from what I heard on the panel, if you guys wanted to partner with me to help my children know who they are, if you were willing to help get hair done and help with hygiene products that our caseworkers don't know about, and help be a family that takes kids to church, that takes them to barbecues, that takes them to be around their people. I would love, love, love to incorporate that into the pilot of how we help our kids know who they are, even though they're in foster care, and the placements that they have, if they even have any, don't look like them, but you still have a community. You're still ours. I would love to see that. So that would be my call to action. Whoever from the Links Incorporated is willing to visit with me on that, let me know. I would love to put that together.
That's excellent. I'm smiling really big because I was typing really hard. But thank you for that. Gigi, to you next. We know you're a money's woman, but can you expand on any other thoughts in your call to action?
I would say help us change the reviews on our children. Be the person that says their children, they're not here because they did anything wrong. They're here because somebody noted that they were living below their privilege and they needed to step in and do something better. And don't make that better damaging, right? When they come to us, let us be the first person to tell them it's okay, you did nothing wrong, because you have to tell children. They're not going to assume that, as we talked earlier about children processing with children's minds. We have to say to them, Judge, when they walk into the room, that you did nothing wrong. That's not why you're here. So don't own that, but while you're here, we're going to take care of you. And I think we can do that. I mean, face to face with all of our kids, I think it'll make all the difference in the world. And then ask them children's questions. Ask them, what do you do when it's time to eat? They may tell you, as I would have told my caseworker, I have to sit on the floor while her kids eat at the table. If you had asked me that. Now, if you asked me if I was hungry and I said yes, and that's different. But if you asked me, what do I do at dinner time? I would have said, I have to sit on the floor and face the wall while the other kids eat. Ask me the kind of questions that'll get me telling you what you can do better for me. So let's give them a place to trust. And it's not going to be a system, it's going to be the people to do it. So, and I'm very people driven, although I do watch where y'all spend your money.
Thank you, Gigi. Chelsea, how about you?
I would say, one of the things I love about our community is that we take care of one another and we take care of our own. And I think that in the times that we're living in, it has become harder and harder to do. So my call to action is to find grandmas and grandpas and uncles and aunts and cousins and friends that are like family that you've grown up with that are raising children as parents and they're not their biological children. Imagine being a 70-year-old grandmother and you get 3 of your grandchildren out of the blue. And you are retired and you're not working. And now you have to take care of 3 kids under the age of 10. And a lot of our kids, we hope that we can find family for them, but sometimes families don't have the capacity. They don't know which way to go. They don't know where the resources are. And really, they really can just benefit from support with somebody directing them, helping them get to the resources. So people are there, families are there in your church, your neighborhood, the community centers. They are there and they're raising children that they are not the biological parents to. So figure out who those are, think about who those people are and be a resource for them and get them the support that might be helpful, not just to the parent, but also to those kiddos. Their success in their life depends on it. So that would be my call to action.
Thank you, Chelsea. And Courtney?
Yes, okay. So I would love to second what Judge Martinez Jones said about the hair products. Change One, we are a research-based organization. And so we have 5 youth in foster care and 5 alumni from the foster care system go through a 6-week internship, research internship, and they surveyed youth in group homes and shelters and asked, what are the problems? What are the needs? And young women of color did say they do not get hair products that help their hair be healthy and that just for their hair type. And they're just given whatever, like Suave or whatever people donate. People are not being intentional about their donations when it comes to hair products. And we all know our hair plays a big part in our confidence as a young person. And so I partnered for Christmas with a local hair salon, and we called it Put Care Back into Hair Care. So I would love to work with y'all to make sure that we have hair care products on an ongoing basis that we can give out to all of the children that are in the different child placement agencies here in Central Texas. So I second that. The other thing is that we're addressing the workforce for our young people because we know they end up homeless, and then we know they have a hard time with like having a home address for even employment. And so we partnered with Dale to do a job readiness training, but I would love to work with y'all on doing a job readiness series as well, because representation is everything. And for a person like myself that came from the foster care system, I did not see women that looked like me. But when I did transition out of foster care, I was at a transition center in Dallas, and I had the pleasure of being mentored by the Links chapter in Dallas, Texas. And I will forever remember those ladies because they had poise and they were just, I was like, I want to be like them, and they took us to, plays, and they taught us how to cook, and they gave us like kits to I still have my kit where I got my little screwdriver and, and so I just really appreciate the Linked ladies in Dallas, Texas for taking me under their wing and showing me how to be a lady. So I will most definitely say y'all could collaborate with the pilot project with, helping young girls of color understand self-worth because I work with a lot of young ladies that have transitioned out, and I'm sad to say this, but some of them are selling their bodies on Craigslist because they're just trying to make money to make ends meet. But it goes back to not knowing their self-worth. It goes back to not feeling love, not having a woman mother figure in their life. And so a consistent one at that. So I would most definitely say that's another call to action. And then also we do a Thanksgiving event every year. Like Gigi was saying, being in some of those foster homes, some of them weren't right. I remember, them being together, having a Thanksgiving meal, and then we had to be like upstairs and not a part of the family unit. So for the last 8 years, we've done a Thanksgiving celebration for children in foster care, because if they're in group home settings, 9 times out of 10, that's staff members being rotated in and out. And so they're not getting a traditional family setting. Some of them may not even be with their siblings. And so being able to have an event where they can come every year, and then once they emancipate out, many of them come back and volunteer. So we're always needing support with that as well. And then last but not least, kinship. So kinship is where there are family members like grandparents, aunts, uncles that are taking kids in, and CPS does not provide a lot of support for kinship. And when I took my 2 cousins into my house, they were 1 and 2. So I needed 2 beds, 2 car seats, 2, and the Rainbow Room helped me. So I would most definitely say donate to the Rainbow Room and then support kinship families in your community. So if you know that there are grandparents out there, or aunts or uncles, make sure you connect them with the Rainbow Room. But thank you. That's my call to action.
And may I say one more thing? I'm sorry. I just want to say, make sure we support the caseworkers that are really working. They really do need us. And a lot of times we can give them the hardest time, but there are some that are out there really working for our children. And let's not forget them in the support network.
Excellent. Thank you all. Full of information. I've got a notepad that has a long list of homework and to-dos. And so I thank you for all of those extra nuggets of wisdom and thoughts. I would like to welcome my fellow Link Lone Star chapter member and Vice President of Programs, Vanessa Henry, for us to close out this evening.
Yes, this has been phenomenal. And the one thing, well, there are many things that have come to mind through this conversation, different calls to action. The one thing that really resonate, 2 things that really resonate with me. One is a rhetorical question that I ask myself, and I really commit to throughout my life. But the question that I ask myself is, what is the responsibility of community? And how are you acting on that responsibility? I think within each of us, we've been given multiple ways that we can take action coming out of this call as a part of a community, the greater Austin community, the African-American community in Austin. But it is our responsibility to respond to that question. The second thing that comes to mind is self-determination. It is not enough to think that systems of government or other entities are going to take care of our kids. We have to intervene. We have to step up. Now that we know that there is a need, it is our responsibility to respond to that. So with that, I thank each and every one of you who has shared your time, your thoughts, your suggestions, your recommendations, your experiences, your life experiences with us this evening. This has really been moving. Thank you, Michelle and Sarah from Partnerships for Children, for even encouraging us at the Lone Star chapter to initiate this conversation. We will make sure that all of the links all of the information shared tonight is available, and we continue to make this information available to others in the community. With that, Michelle, did you have any final words?
No, I mean, I'll just reiterate what everybody else said. Thank you for the time coming tonight and being interested in this topic. And I would say just tell somebody else who wasn't here what you learned and how they can help. And, again, you can mentor. We have a waiting list of children in our Yes Mentorship program that are waiting for mentors, and we are intentional in trying to match those kids with people who look like them. So we definitely need mentors for those children. And same thing with the products in the Rainbow Room. We get a lot of African American hair care products, but they are, not of the best quality. And, we want to treat these kids with everything that we want for our own children and everything that they deserve. So volunteer with us, feel free to donate to us, tell a friend, be a mentor, and thank you so much for coming, and just please stay involved with one of our organizations.
Yes. God bless and good night. Thank you everyone for your time.
Thank you.